Thank you very much to the IMA for inviting me to share a few thoughts with you. I also want to take the opportunity, as Prof. Rajan has said, to compliment you on reaching this milestone of 40 years in existence. Mine is going to be a little bit of a, not as nice as Rajan's and the previous speaker on ethics. Mine's going to be a little bit of a challenge to you. So I use a topic here. It's called the Brave New World and of the future of healthcare. Let me tell you why the Brave New World. We're riddled with so much of complexity and we're riddled with so many challenges that the only way we can come to a future is to actually enter the brave new challenge. And all of you here who make your living from private practice or any practice would need to be part of the change to the future, or you should lead the change. You can't abdicate this to somebody else. You've got to be part of the solution. So that's the reason why we chose the topic. So I'm going to look at this in 3 different parts, and I'm trying to keep to time. The first part is, what is the future and what are the challenges? And I'm hoping that this is going to be very, is that a bit low? Is that okay? All right, thanks. And the second part would be to look at, there is an almost like an intersection between the future of artificial intelligence, technology, and clinical care. Lots of people in this audience, when I talk to, and I talk to on a regular basis, they say to me, Prof. Chetty, we've got gray hair. So we're over 55. So why should we get dabble in artificial intelligence and look at all these technology? Believe me, it's at your doorstep, and we need to get familiar with it. The third part is, my chairperson here plunged this on me, was to take us through national health insurance. So I'm not going to be taking you through all the aspects of it, but I'm going to take you to why is the community out there, why are health professionals asking this question, what's happening to this national health insurance? We're hearing about it for 10 years. So I'm going to take you through just one aspect in detail, that is, from the time we had the green paper, the white paper, from the bill to how we're going to have the act or law in place. So, I'm going to have a very good eyesight, Rajan, better than yours, because I can't see the stuff here. I think, first of all, forecasting the future of health policy is an imperfect science. We always want to say, what's going to happen tomorrow? You can't. You've got to live it by day, but we can prepare for the future. We heard this from the previous speakers as well. I think we're all tired, and we need to put a halt to decades of focus groups, special interest groups, politicians, doctors, healthcare professionals meeting us in so-called task teams. All these task teams are a nice occupational therapy, takes us nowhere. We need action. We need some action. Meeting people and listening to nonsense is going on for a long, long time. You must pardon my English every now and then. Primary healthcare offers the best way of coping with the 21st century. If you look at, this is what Margaret Chan said before she left the WHO. She said globalization of unhealthy lifestyles, and this is not just sitting in the city centers, unhealthy lifestyles are now gone into the peri-urban and into the rural areas. Rapid, unplanned urbanization. We're seeing a lot of urbanization, and we've got the biggest challenge ahead of us is this unplanned aging population, and we're very happy with the technologies that we have people living for longer. But you've got to factor into that, they've got more diseases, they go into hospital, they have more complexities, they're there for longer. So it's not just living for longer, do we prepare for that life when they do get there? In the United Kingdom, Europe, a lot of research has been done to show what is the benefit of primary health care. And what was shown that you need, if you have sufficient GPs or professionals at grassroots level, you can actually mitigate the challenges of the future. So the point that I want to make to you, the future of healthcare, to give access to basic healthcare, is in the domain of the general practitioner. You are the people that are going to get healthcare to the people as quick as possible. Don't be ashamed or apologetic of being a GP. You have a vital role to play in the future of healthcare of this country. So if you look at general practitioners, they have a number of things. It's a multifaceted task. Patients come to your rooms. This is a naive patient. You are challenged to having to listen to this patient, to take a history, to examine the patient, and to make sure that the patient is managed appropriately. This is a huge challenge. You are not people that take the heart out of the patient, examine the heart and put it back, or look at the liver of the patient. You're looking at the patient in totality. It's a very difficult profession, right? It's what you do, and if you do correctly, is what's going to cause the rest of the healthcare system to follow in an appropriate fashion. So what do? You're looking at counseling and support, examining patients, health promotion, continuing care, community health. And if we use the international IHI triple aim, there were 3 aims to what you and I do every day. It's to manage the patient adequately so that that management will result in a population being cared for, and the last factor is cost, right? So we don't only manage, you and I don't only manage the patient, we may manage the patient in the community, in his family, and in the population. So it's another layer in which you don't realize how important the role of general practitioners are. So primary health care is crucial to achieving each aspect of universal health care. Yet primary health care practitioners do not get the recognition and do not get the respect that you need from the entire healthcare system. I say this very circumspect in the sense that I see this every day. The kind of meetings we have and what we get out of the meetings, very, very little. The link between primary healthcare, universal healthcare, and the Sustainable Development Goals has to be met by 2030. I think we're on track, but I'm not 100% sure that at 2030 we're going to be there. I'm certainly not sure in this country that NHI is going to be there either. I don't know if Faisal wanted to hear that part, but I'm going to tell it to him. So if you look at this diagram, these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And you'll see that goal number 3 is about primary health care, and 3B is specifically in this document that was put up by the United Nations as universal health care. So we have a major challenge. The other goals are also important. Working as a community, working with the public and private sector, working with the fact that the economy has to be right to support health and healthcare are all part of this. But just to show you, it's a very complex set of functionalities that we're going to be involved in when we're looking at primary healthcare. We've got lots of challenges, and the point that I want to make to you is please be familiar what the challenges are. This challenge is not about the leadership being aware of it. You need to be aware of it. So what is the future role of GPs? We will always be the first contact care for the patient entering the healthcare system. In the future, we are going to be given a registered population of patients that you and I will be totally in charge of or responsible for. So we have a huge responsibility as we go on the years, as we go closer and closer to universal health care. And the important point I said earlier when I started, do not feel that being a general practitioner, you're going to be apologetic. So I'm going to give you a new title before you leave here. And the title is that you're an expert generalist, right? And in parts of the world, and I think in South Africa in the future, you can't finish final year medicine community service and go into primary care. You'll have to go through a training program in which you will be certified to go into this specialty called family medicine or go into the specialty called general practice. So I think I'm going to kind of stop about the future to say we have a very important future. We have a role to play. It's an important role to play because we are the custodians of the future of healthcare in this country, right? And I don't think we should feel that we have very little to offer, or we shouldn't be taken aback by this terminology that general practice and primary healthcare are low-hanging fruits because it's the cheapest part of the health system to provide healthcare. We are not the cheapest. So in summary, primary healthcare, it's a very uncertain discipline because patients are naive. You're not there able to make certain predictions. What will you do? The future is very imperfect because we don't know where we're going to right now in this country. And the future we know is not going to be solo practitioners. So I'm not putting you guys off who are solo practitioners. If you're a solo practitioner, you cannot deliver holistic healthcare 24/7 and provide the speciality in the different disciplines that you as a family practitioner need to be involved in. So the future, we need to start preparing for what we call team-based care, integrated care, and multidisciplinary care. And whether you're 55 and over or you've got a gray beard or not, we need to familiarize ourselves with the fact that artificial intelligence and technology are going to be the future because your patients have already embraced it. Patients are asking for these platforms. And if your patients want these platforms, you need to be on that platform as well. I'm now going to take you to a little bit of what I call a convergence of you and I as primary care practitioners with us in terms of the technological advances that we're going to see. At the moment, we are smack in the middle of a challenge in which we have enormous demands and we have very little resources. So we in a situation, we need to balance what we have and with the demands that come up in the future. We need to manage limited resources in a health-efficient way. We have limited resources. I'll come back to you and say, are these resources limited because of you and I, or are they limited because of the fact it's been inefficiently used? We have to shift the focus from treating one disease at a time to treating multiple diseases in multiple patients in a population. So this business of saying, I'm responsible for 10 patients, it's not that. If you get a patient that you suspect has got tuberculosis coming into your room, your treatment is not complete till you find out more about your patient. Where does your patient live? What are the social determinants of health that that patient faces? Is he going back to a squatter camp where 5 people live in one room? Can you send him back there? Because by not managing the patient adequately, you're sending him to infect an entire population. So is your treatment complete? Giving him a set of tablets and putting him on TB treatment if the services around him are not being sorted out. So it's imperative that whatever we were taught to date needs to change. And I'll go back to what I said. You have to be part of the change, or you should lead this change. We understand that change is a process, it's not an event. So I think the problem is it's become very protracted and we don't have enough time to get there. So we actually have limited time to get to where we want to. We're going to understand what are the existing challenges and what are the new challenges ahead of us. And when we go into the NHI, I'm going to actually do these challenges and show you what these challenges are. Now I want to make another statement that I think is a very good take-home message. Don't spend a summer on challenges. They'll always be there. Look beyond the challenge and see what opportunities are there. Use those opportunities to propose solutions. Why have we failed as a health profession? We complain and we complain and we complain. When we go to these so-called boss parades, if you want to call it, when we go there, they say to us, okay, we understand you have 10 challenges. Can you suggest what we should do about it? And you know something? None of us have an alternative to suggest. We go down there and we hand it back to government. We're handing it back to the people who put policy in place, imperfect policies. We leave the meeting giving them the opportunity to correct it. They've already presented to you that they made a mess up. So why are we leaving it back with them? So look beyond challenges, look at the opportunities that there are, and look at the fact that we can propose solutions rather than just identify the problems that there already exist. The whole issue of national health insurance, the whole issue of universal health care, the whole issue of the future is about achieving equity. We need to get equity in healthcare. Unfortunately, we've inherited a society that's very unequal. We've got more inequality than equality. And one of the big challenges going forward is how do we address inequality, not only in the economy, but how do we address inequality in terms of the way healthcare is distributed between the haves and the have-nots. So it's really frightening if we look at it and find out where we're going. We don't have enough resources. So unfortunately, one of the solutions, or fortunately one of the solutions is how do we optimize the use of technology? How do we optimize the use of artificial intelligence to take more care to more people with limited human resources to deliver the care? So we have 5 enabling themes to get to here. Empowering patients. I want to make the statement, and people will know that I'm passionate about it. The future people is patient-centric care. Your patient will become the center of healthcare, not you as a doctor, not the president or the minister of health. Your patient wants to rule, wants to be part of the decision-making process. He wants to be part of making decisions about his own healthcare. So we're going to get empowered, informed patients of the future, coming up with the fact that they can make informed decisions with their healthcare practitioner. For this, they need a platform where the data and the information is available for them to do this. They should not be dependent totally on Google and internet, because that's going to take them nowhere. Addressing the health inequalities, I've just been through that and told you. And when I come to the next part, I'll talk to you about how we can express inequality in the health sector. We need to unlock the value of digital data. Everybody's got data. Discovery has got data. Government has got data. All the medical aids have got data. The private sector has got data. Do we have data about South Africa? We don't. So how do you make decisions on health? How do you make decisions about allocating resources when you don't have all the data on one platform so that you can identify areas where health should be taken to? We don't have this. So we need to not only collect data like we always do, how do we take this data and make this data utilizable so that we can identify challenges and use the data to look at where the early warning signs are? The future is not going to be isolated solo practice. It's going to be integrated care, where you, as a solo practitioner, must form a virtual relationship with the practitioners in your area. Whether it's another GP who's good at asthma or diabetes, work with your team, work with your specialists, build a neighborhood in your area of specialists that you can rely on, who can be used as mentors, where you, your specialists, the nurses, the hospitals can sit on one table and find out how do you mitigate the challenges of healthcare of this country. So the future is how we work as teams. And we got to realize, and COVID has shown us this, and I think Prof. Naidu also said this to us, that COVID has showed us that we are living in a global village. South Africa is part of the global village. We have to understand whatever happens to us, happens to our neighbors, and happens to everybody. COVID has shown us that it did not isolate the rich countries from the poor countries, right? So we've got to embrace this phenomena of globalization of healthcare. So I want to show you what some of the challenges are that we face in sub-Saharan Africa and in South Africa. One is, we only are using 1% of the world global healthcare spend, 1%. Yet in this country, we have 25%, Africa has 25% of the global burden of disease. And we only have 3% of the healthcare workforce. How do you provide good healthcare for 25% burden of disease with 1% money and only 3% of healthcare professionals? That's the first one. If we look at the next one, in terms of 1,000 population, South Africa is only just under 1.9 practitioners per 1,000. It's 0.35 or thereabouts for, is it 0.15 in Kenya and 0.38 in Nigeria. That's the population and that's the number of practitioners. Compare this to the first world countries. Compare it to Switzerland, which has 4.3 medical practitioners per 1,000 population. So they have almost 4.3 times more doctors per 1,000 patients than you and I. They have a bigger healthcare spend, they have a bigger distribution of resources, and that's the big challenge we have. Why? COVID has showed us that because we don't have universal healthcare, the poorest of the poor have been most affected. What are the other challenges? The other challenges are financial constraints. Do you think we have enough money to change the healthcare of this country? I think we do. I think we seriously do. What we have is, we have an inefficient management of the money we have. We don't have a deficiency. We have an inefficiency. Factor into that fraud, corruption, theft, and that'll tell you that South Africa has the money. We are expected to spend 5.5% of our GDP on health for a developing economy. We are spending 8.5%, more than Europe, more than Switzerland, more than Germany. But we don't have universal health cover in this country, nor do we have good quality of care. So what's happening to the extra 3% we're spending? I'll leave that to your imagination. We have resource constraints. I've been to the resources that we are constrained. Human resource constraints, we don't have equipment, we don't have medicines in this country, we don't have diagnostic facilities in the country. Whatever has been there is either non-operational or non-existent. Or if it's there, we don't have the technologists to operate them. So we have a problem, people, in the sense that South Africa, which is part of sub-Saharan Africa, has a huge challenge to get through. And is the answer universal healthcare? Certainly is. I'm still at 10, so I'm doing well. So this is technology, the brave new world of technology, and I'm just going to summarize this for you and say to you that the future is technology. The future is how we adopt technology. Please don't get scared about it. Technology of the future is an incremental thing. And I told you earlier on why it's important is because your patients have already started using technology. They know a lot about their data, they know a lot about healthcare, but the various systems that are in place. So we cannot wait for the future to arrive. We must create the future. Stop being apologetic about being primary care doctors. Stop being reactive. We need to look at the challenges, identify opportunities, and we need to advance solutions. So, healthcare is not a tradable commodity. It's a public good. And according to the Health Act, it's a public good. So the future is NHI. How are we going to get there is another problem. Will we get there is another problem. But it's an important acronym to keep in place. It's about coordinating care, integrating care, and having a multidisciplinary team care for the future. And it's a concept which you and I are not doing at the moment. If some of you are doing it, then you're lucky. You've got to be responsible for your patient 24/7, which means that you've got to find alternatives for your patient when you're not there. So I'm going to quickly go through the NHI and tell you what it is, and I want to go through the legal part to tell you why it's taking so long. The bill establishes the NHI that we now is just a fund. It's a financial institution, and it's an organ of the state. It is designed to achieve equity in the future, and I told you we don't have equity. How do we measure equity? We can measure equity by using what we call the Gini coefficient. The Gini coefficient tells us, it's a statistical method to tell us how unequal we are. South Africa is the most unequal society for the better part of the world. Our Gini coefficient is 0.63. The closer to 1, the more unequal our society is. Behind us is Namibia and Suriname. Belarus, some of the third world countries are far ahead of us in the sense that they have better Gini coefficients. The bill establishes this fund. It also establishes the functions, the powers, the duties of the fund, etc. I'm not going to go through every line here, but what concerns me about this, a lot of nomination of the board members, of the committee that chooses the board members, management of the single fund, where all the money will be sitting in a single entity, is in the power of the minister. Now that's a concern. That's a concern. If one individual is going to run this entire trillions and trillions of rands of a fund, when the evidence at the moment is that state-owned enterprises are doing terrible. So how do we have confidence that a single fund is going to meet the challenges of the future of health in this country? So the purpose of the Act, when it does become effective, is to maintain the National Health Insurance Fund through a mandatory prepayment. So it'll come from mandatory prepayment from your earnings, or government will subsidize it, or it will be stopping subsidization of things like medical aids. And all that money will now sit in a single fund. Everybody will be covered by this single fund, except the military and certain special service groups, because the military is not in the country all the time, so they're not. But all the rest of us, whether you're a billionaire or whether you're a pauper, if there's such a word, will all be entitled to free healthcare. I think that's a good aspirational theme, but I don't think it's right to do at this stage if you're trying to implement healthcare for all. So the role of medical schemes is what's controversial, which is functioning quite adequate, though expensive. It needs to be regulated. But if the government, the minister has the right at any one time to institute Regulation 33, and Regulation 33 means he can stop medical aids in their tracks. That's the controversy at the moment in the country by the people that run medical aids. And we also need to see that there are certain deliverables that you need. All of you, in order for you to participate in NHI, you need to become what we would say certified. You will be certified by an inspection by the Office of Health Standard Compliance. There's a set of norms and standards. We have a GP team now that's trying to make these norms and standards as simple as possible. But those norms and standards will give you a tick list that you have been certified. You will take that certificate and then you'll go to the NHI fund and you'll apply to be accredited. So it's a long, laborious process that's ahead of you. And once you're accredited, then you will be contracted by a situation which I'll show you just now, where you will provide those services based on certain clinical care guidelines, certain referral pathways, and there will be a bundle of services that you have to produce. This is the controversy. To date, none of us knows what the bundle of service is. We're not sure what we expected to provide, but we expected to put our hands up and say, we support NHI. Yes, I put my hands up. I support it in principle, not in the fact that I'm going to participate in it without any information. So, I want to take you to the legislative process, and I'm sure, Mr. Chair, that I should be finished by then. About 2012, we had a green paper, and in 2017, we had a white paper. Now, all of you here, myself, and the population at large wants to know what's happening to the NHI. So let me just take you along this quick journey. The white paper has certain deliverables in it, and the government will have to develop a bill which is done, and the bill must express the content of the white paper without deviation to what the white paper has in it. So that's what the bill is at the moment. The bill is then being referred to the National Cabinet, and after the Cabinet approves, it then goes to the National Assembly. So what I'm trying to show you is the longevity of the legal process. So if you ask us here, when is NHI going to be implemented, we don't really know, right? After dealing with the details of the bill, it will be referred to the Health Portfolio Committee. And it will be next published in a document, which has already been done. And then you'll be invited for oral presentations. Now, I'm not sure how many of you people have been. I've been to an oral presentation on behalf of all of you guys, so hopefully that I said the right things. They said 4 to 6 weeks, but it's going on for the second year, right? So another thing to tell you about the longevity of it, takes a long time to get there. At the oral presentation, sitting on one side of the table are all the politicians who have representatives on the health sector. And this will be followed by an assessment. So you have the politicians at the Health Portfolio Committee, you present all your input, and their criticisms will be then taken, documented, and a paper produced. The next stage after finalization, this paper is referred to the National Council of Provinces, or the provincial legislation, right? We're still dealing with Parliament, and it has to go to the provinces. What's the problem? The problem is, hitherto, with our new constitution, each 9 province had the right to manage its own budget and manage its own delivery of healthcare. Now, are you going to convince them a big pot of money is going to be taken away and kept in by the government, and the provinces don't have a right to manage this? They are going to revolt. And you're going to get legal processes to and fro, because they're not going to throw in the towel and say, government, we trust you, do what you want to do. The provinces will want to have a mandate to continue managing part of their budget. The final document, recommendations are made after it goes to provinces. Provinces will have to go and convince the municipalities, come back with their document. This final document is then taken to Parliament. When it goes to Parliament, it's given to the President. The President can look at it, he may agree, not agree, he'll get a panel of experts to assist him, and the President can either sign this into law. So what I'm trying to say to you, this is a long process to law. Once it becomes law, any one of you and I can challenge the President and take it back to court. So anybody wants to guess when NHI is going to be implemented? We're going to sit in court. That's the easiest place to be at, right? So the President is in a very precarious position at the moment. We know what the process is, we've got to follow the process. So what are some of the, I'm going to finish off with this 1 or 2 slides. What are the present skepticisms that we have with this entire NHI and the process? It's still discussion on affordability. Whether we're spending too much of the GDP, whether we're going to stop corruption, or whether we're going to stop all the stuff, or whether we're going to have one single person running this is not comfortable for you and I, right, as a way forward. We have a lack of skilled personnel. We have a country in which a lot of work has to be done in the peripheral areas because we have urbanization of populations, so we need community health workers, not because she put her hand up and she can go from house to house. She needs to be trained. We don't have enough skilled general practitioners. When you qualify, you can't even get a job as an intern or a community health worker. So how do we provide this deficiency of resources? Look again to what I said to you about the population of Africa having just 3% of skilled resources. We have geographical distortions. We have an urban concentration. We have lots of distortion in the equipment, facilities, health professionals in these areas. We have lack of fiscal control. If you go down further, we have historically a perception there's a collapse of the public sector. We have human resources insufficient, not enough skills people to run hospitals. We have equipment and device deficiencies, and we have no medication to give patients most of the time. So it's not a very comforting thought that we want to embark into NHI without getting the vocabulary correct from the A and B, and we want to get down to Z. So that's the concern that lots of people have. Not that we oppose NHI, we oppose NHI in the fact that we have a very imperfect society and imperfect set of demands and wants. So what have we said? We, representing you all, said we support NHI if we can correct all the distortions we spoke about, but we said we should start with the pro-poor strategy. Don't fix what's not broken. Don't worry about people who can pay for medical aids now. Let them pay. If they're paying too much, it's their business. They made their choice. Let's look at people who don't have health care, the poor, the very poor, the indigent, and let's start giving them free health care now. We can do it. We should do a staggered implementation. Don't wait for the fact the 1st of January 25 that everybody has to go on to NHI. It's not going to happen. We've got to stagger the implementation, starting with the poor. Important point here, irrespective of whether they're very expensive, the private sector is providing very good healthcare. So I don't think there is any discussion about leaving the private sector out of the solution. The rest of Africa has started a public-private strategy to give universal healthcare. In this country, we cannot leave the private sector out of the discussion, which is the threat on the table. And we've got to use all the various facilities, the IPAs, the GP movement, etc. And then we have one big problem in the sense that now a new well, it's not a kind of, it's been there for a while, that before you get accredited, all of you guys must go and become familiar with the master facility list. The MFL is a list it's a program that's being developed by government because NHI will not be paper-based. You've got to use this master facility list with the government developing an electronic health record, and you've got to be competent to use that before you become accredited to see patients. So we have a team of 6 doctors, GPs in practice, looking at how we can make this list utilizable. The question I ask is, will the government's electronic health record system fit into the ones that we have in our practice at the moment? Or are we expected to change all our software now to fit into the government's program? Nobody's answering that. So Mr. Chair, I'm going to end up with these few questions. Are the primary care doctors equipped to provide these services or skilled? We don't know because we don't know what service we need to provide. We have a perception that the power of the medical profession has been undermined. We are not taken on the journey. It's like having a train and coaches and an engine. Government and the policymakers are sitting in the engine. They're getting to the station while the coach is still left behind. If we don't go as one unit to the destination, it's a waste of time. Right? So you can't make policy in closed doors without taking you and I to those meetings to have our input. The MFL accreditation is something new that's been thrown at us. It is what prevented us from participating in the vaccine program, because we as GPs couldn't do the MFL while the pharmacists could. So it's now becoming a new threat for us. So it has traditionally been determined by government on a whole lot of exercises that we've not been participating in, we don't know. So we have a number of challenges, and I'm going to leave with the saying that we are using in all our meetings when we represent you. We are saying nothing about us without us.